Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to the Gisborne District Council Civil Defence meeting for today. I do have an apology for Councillor Ria. She is representing myself and the council at Te Maruata today. I do not have anything there or on the screen, so we will at this stage move the apology for all present for Councillor Ria, seconded by Councillor Parata. All in favour? Contrary, carried. Thank you. I also just want to include that Miss Whitewood, Naomi, who will be presenting our recovery, might be a little bit late, so she also caught a flight. I just want to publicly acknowledge that Ben and our team won Civil Defence Prize last night. And Nomai is probably struggling to carry her award because Recovery also won a prize. It's the All of Government.
So we both for projects, best projects of the year. This was for the Smart Communities section, and we won for the AI Web3 mapping and the information and data section. Yeah.
So congratulations from all of us. Ben, please convey that to your team and we'll do the same. So Nomai is still trying to get here. Flights and stuff, so thank you for that. Declarations of interest, nothing. Action register, I don't think we've got nothing. We've got two. The updates are in there from Dr. Cave. Is he going to give us an update? There he is. Hello, Dr. Cave.
I'm trying to hide.
Good. So do you want to give us the volcano update now?
Yes, we was held up by obtaining the photograph we wished to use on the front cover, but we eventually got that from Gisborne Herald, who were happy about us using it. And Craig has to resolve still the map that's going on the back, which shows the location of everything. And once we get that sorted out, that's ready to go live.
Awesome.
There is now the attached report would also be then going up and onto the website that associates with it.
Good. Thank you for that. And the other one is updated in. Yeah. Okay, without further ado, let me just go through what we have to go through. Action, governance plan, there is no leave of absence. Acknowledgements and tributes, any acknowledgements and tributes that I should be aware of? No. No public input and petitions, no extraordinary business, no notices of motion or adjourned business. I take everyone to page 5, which is been your report. So I'm going to hand over to you to take us through your report. You can take everything as read, and then we'll ask Ian just to chime in on NEMA stuff at the end. Have everyone met? Jeremy, you've met. Everyone knows Ian? Yes.
Firstly, just acknowledge everyone that's joining the committee and seeing us through for the next 3 years with Tim and Jeremy joining with your colleagues. That's going to be for the last one. The report really not substantial, but our key piece that's on the way at the moment is the group development key document. As mentioned during the induction come oversight, it's a good time for really where the committee is now. You're joining that to really what will be the plan that we'll adopt to be future-proofing our region, our whānau, for really what we're looking at future-induced risk and the way that really our region is configuring for that. So some of the small things, and I'll just take you through page 7 particularly, the launch of our the dedicated emergency website. Really great to see really it's been soft launch, but now we're pretty much just looking at the transitional aspects of coming out of the GDC sites where it's been hosted, and really growing that now with very rich research. And very much the activation mode when we go into our response component, everything else there. So if you haven't been in there, just encourage you to go and have a look. And feedback, it is, we will go to the public, just ask really what they look and feel and the usability is like, but certainly it's been pretty positive on the whole. I'm not going to read word for word my aspects of my report, but I will highlight just beneath the website, but the hazard and risk workshop that was conducted here. Key thing to note with that, it's the group plan's obviously been a document that has been done here before, but I would have to say that the level of consultation, the level of participation that's been conducted for this round is substantive. It's actually, I think, more representative of what consultative engagement and partnership looks like. We haven't closed it off to produce the draft report yet because the iwi contribution, we actually want to go back to make sure we've got a good quorum for that. We're just looking to release to the iwi chairs really around doing another push for them, for their city delegates that would want to be part of that. And we'll consolidate that, take that into the new year period for that. And what that will then produce is the uptake of the report that will be tabled here, and equally then set the timeline for consultation with the public up to the point where we can then table that back to via NEMA for ministerial review. So a lot of work in here, but hey, it's a different mahi from what we've been doing 3 years, which is not about writing plans, but certainly activating plans.
Just for Ben proceeds in that, I'd like to just congratulate Ben and Yvette on the hazard risk workshop. Look, it's probably going to lead how that gets developed in the rest of the country, because not only did it look at the hazards and risks, it actually looked at the mitigation measures, what the public thought of it, or the communities thought of it, and how they would be instigated, and how they're going to go into your group plan. So that hasn't been done before in the country, so that's also leading the way in how we're looking at it. So in respect to the group, excellent.
We've got very much an operational piece of work underway at the moment, which is the implementation of a mesh network. You've been following our social media, or at least communications going out. Very much underway. It is an expedient network. It is part of one of the layers within the redundancy we want within our communications. That's going into really the intent is to connect every pocket of our region. And we have really got up to Tukumari Bay, about really to continue the push north side, and you'll see the solar node that's on top of page 9 there, putting those in. They really form the regional backbone that communities within link into. It's working 100%. They'll be talking back to us here at the Emergency Centre. If it's not, they'll be able to talk amongst themselves and equally within the other catchments within the area there. So a key thing there is really it's been a homegrown aspect of this. The technology's been open source, but the method and the way that we've designed the whole system and leveraging a very smart young software engineer that's self-taught here in Gisborne. This is another good example of really a homegrown product. And a lot of things we sort of do, we're not flush with cash, but we certainly we take that intent and we turn that sales into a silk's purse where we can pretty much respect the fact that we've got the money to use and we use it wisely. Probably just head straight over and up to just our shakeout campaign. So an actual absolute stellar result for what we achieved this year. Last year was really a national leading sign-up record for that. To hit 32% was actually an aspirational number we wrote would be something to try and target for 2 to 3 years' time, and to actually have nailed it this year. And what it really provides is a lead indicator for engagement. It's a great way to measure the fact that there's a paid campaign that we run. It's measurable by the fact that we can quantify what that's delivering for us. And really the key thing there is you're getting whānau, businesses, schools in particular, and really as a collective community and region that recognises our risk with Hikurangi subduction zone. And what's well underway now, we just know the conversations we have with kura and the like, and last week we had the Awapuni school supporting them with their hikoi. Doing that is really pleasing because it's from where we started 4 or 5 years ago with the campaign. We now really take it every year. We're sort of building on that. That's really a key success, so we're really proud of that. It's probably the key points for you, Worship.
Any questions in regards to Ben's report? Councillor Taufa.
Yeah, Ben, the mesh core system, so that'll people be able to use cell phones to text, is that right?
No, it's, oh, sorry, yes, it will, but it's, the phone is only the device to communicate. So you're not actually using the cell function on the phone. I actually have a device here which I'll just hold up for you. But the, this is a node, so this is what we're putting into our community. So each community will get 4 of these. Now, some want to buy more, which is all good. What it does, it's a low bandwidth system. The phone is an app that we use as a text-based interface with the phone. The device, one of these, and if you look at that page 9, the range you're getting, which is effectively one of these in a hardened case, you're getting over 300 kilometres with optimum conditions from point-to-point transmission. And it's a very capable, to be honest, having a text-based system is far better than voice. People are more coherent texting. You haven't got people that don't use radios as a regular thing. I mean, they're not confident to really try and relay the message, and then you've got a whole network of people trying to talk on radios. With text, we have an interface for this in the emergency centre. It's really like a digital switchboard. You can pick up on what's coming in and connecting them. I think for the start state for a region, a lot of our areas without an emergency already have black spots. So I wouldn't be surprised there's shopping orders going for days. People would probably normalise the use of it, not just for emergencies.
So you text on your phone through that.
Yeah.
So how close do people have to be to that device?
Oh, it's like in Gisborne here, the repeater's up on Gaddams Hill.
So would one service the whole town?
Yep. We have one, Gaddams Hill, that talks directly up to Mount Misery up in Marawa. And at the moment, the other nodes then that connects us through, just with the Onoda Bay site and Mato Road in Tukumari. And on top of Puketiri, last year we put the test unit up there, so we used a different system, the proof of concept. We're now using a different motor software that's far more capable, and the Puketiri one will now take us the leg up towards Rutoria.
Your proof of concept developed that, what we have now?
It's validated the fact that we needed to remove the limitation. The previous system only had a limitation of going through 3 hops and you get the degradation signal. With this unit now, if I was talking to where Dr. K was in each of these vases were at the top of the hill, we're not limited by how many hills it takes to get down there.
Councillor Parata.
It's always so impressive to hear what's happening in the civil defence space. Considering that we're leading the country in some places, innovation probably will lead the state, and we're doing best practice, and we've got all of these innovations, I assume that other regions are following the example that's being set in Airāwhiti. If that's the case, are we making them pay for that? I'm not being smart. I just, the mahi that you do and your team does, and it's being done well in the region, is valuable. And we have money issues, and we have civil defence, weather emergencies that need to be funded somehow. Is that something that we can do, can consider, can leverage either to other regions or to central government itself?
It's something I haven't considered. It's really the engineer that's developed this, really for him the total for really what it's taken. I mean, that development's taken place without cost of partnership in that. I think really I look at it in the fact that it's taken what is an open source solution. You can get these already. What's been developed is the logic that's developed to turn it into a system, and by virtue of doing that, we've really added another layer of a network into our, and we'll have another layer that will go into communications with the high frequency radios. That allows us the out of region backup as well. This will be, even with where the Matawai points are, you can actually transmit over to Hawke's Bay. And directly from top of Kaiti Hill right down to Mahia, into Wairoa, into Hawke's Bay. So it's actually...
Don't jump the gun.
Can I just, so from a product, like I think that if Ben and the team were developing something that has a particular IP attached to it and you could commercialise that, then there wouldn't be any reason not to, I think, in terms of the work that the team does, because when we had the cyclone, our regional council staff, civil defence leaned in and helped us, so it is kind of a reciprocal relationship in that sense.
I can completely appreciate that and really appreciate that that's the way this country works, is to lean in an emergency and support each other. However, when we're not in an emergency, and nobody is in an emergency, and we're looking at preparedness and community engagement and so on and so forth, I think just as well as this is a clever piece of equipment and system, so is the mahi that you do in terms of intelligence and engagement, and that is definitely worth packaging. Outside of that, I just wanted to make a comment that I really entirely understand the system, and I imagine that lots of rural community people also won't entirely understand that system. Is there a plan for training and engagement?
Starting this, pretty sure this Sunday. So getting their node and that whānau that come through, that is very much, because the equipment really isn't going to be smart unless we get the people component connected to it. So the other key thing, and this award in terms of equipment as well, is for all our water desalination units. And by country mile, our region is turning into a metaphorical fortress, because we are hardening for the day that we know will be our worst day. But the day that isn't our worst day will be a good day, because we know we're not able to really switch all this on. But we are, I think we should be as whānau, because it's some of the investment, particularly for the water equipment. So Ngāti Pro bought 15. That partnership and working with the other hapu and iwi areas for training as well is really just indicative, really, where we want a partnership. It's not around trying to just buy stuff because it's a good idea. And water, particularly, as well as communications, are the two criticals. And that's, I think, we'll be there with the rollout for that, certainly in terms of your areas. We'll let you know that's coming through. And equally, I think, that's the opportunity really to see the uptake. And already people are pretty fizzed up.
One more, I'll give it a rest.
All good.
So I think, I don't know, maybe Ian will know, but it feels like it's gearing up to be summer for the first time in 2 years. And that's exciting for all of us. A few years ago we were concerned about the possibility of drought. Are we also concerned about the possibility of drought for the 2025-2026 summer period?
Certainly went to La Nina. I could get Dr. Cave just expand on the what's just been released by Met Service for La Nina, and equally with what that also put in for the cyclone season prediction. To answer your question directly with the drought, so the Fens have just released the wildfire report. So obviously with the dry comes the risk that elevates from that, which is our wildfire risk, and of course our region is really one big fuel cell. Obviously the amount of woodlots and etc. So that report we'll look to release in terms of really regional preparedness and awareness for that. That has only just been released this week. I wouldn't have the opportunity to put into this report.
Thank you so much.
All good. Anyone Councillor Mio?
I am keen to hear how the school evacuation went, but just before that, on this the new connection system, I'm assuming that it's civil defence response people around the region, that it's not going to be enabling these communications generally amongst people.
Not social text.
Yeah, we just had the coordinating executive group, or the KEG, was that Monday?
Yeah.
So part of really, resilience even for our emergency services is to, like for the rural fire stations and police stations as well. We'll talk with them by actually adding that in. At the end of the day, you've got quite a significant tightening of belts across all of those agencies. FENZ has got a $60 million saving for the next 30 years. So it's really where we can lean in. These aren't expensive devices. The node we've got there's roughly $160. So within the scope of what we've got to deploy, we'll be looking to make sure that we've got them connected. The benefit of that, if they're connected in the community sense, the area they cover, everybody has really got that mission.
What about the school evacuation? How did it go?
Well, firstly, I'd certainly the school actually doing that exercise and moving the 300 kids, and that went really well. They managed to get there within the time frame that said. I had Dallas from the team that went down to be part of that hecoy. One thing we identified, and it's the challenge of, as you can all imagine, moving 300 children in one big snake, is the command and control for teachers to be in contact as a result of really trying to move that. So having identified, that was identified as an outtake and of really as part of what we're now going to put in place. We'll buy 4 CB radios for each school. We'll buy one for every school in the region to be able to deal with that scenario. That'll be a lesson applied, and we'll just resource that and operationally put that in the field. Heading into next year, it's not a report here, but we have a project to put evacuation PO within each, particularly in each tsunami zone throughout the whole area, the whole coast. We'll work with the kura in terms of identifying those sites. I'd like to have a target date to be complete by October next year, which is when shakeout will happen next year. And those kura that take part in it will be, if we get it right, get the work plan through over the course of heading into next year, that'll be the first operational practice of that system. Wainui was a pilot we did 2021, and we then sort of dealt with the water in a different scenario with obviously cyclones, but we're going to get that as our key mark project for next year.
All good?
Oh, one other supplementary, the chili dog exercise.
Yeah. Yes, so chili dog, and we'll just debrief that. I haven't got the full report it's not added with the attachments, but we ran chili dog, which is based on the Chilean tsunami event activation from the 1960 actual event. So we only, I guess, wargamed the time which was the activation in Chile through to wave arrival, which is 12 hours. Looking to run the second iteration of that exercise, which will be the same scenario, but now dealing with impact, plus 72 hours. And what that will play out there is will enhance some of our operational planning for the region. So things like the water treatment units and these communication systems are actually validated by that scenario, because your critical infrastructure loss, or the risk posed to that, the loss of that key infrastructure, is really what we're doing. We're putting risk reduction, particularly around the critical vulnerabilities. And we're also, as part of that, the next scenario, which we'll look to confirm the date in February, and I'd certainly get open invite, I think, to come down to CS Centre activated to be, this forum. And we'll look at then the transition to recovery, but which allows NOMI to take really the recovery lens into part of what we'll then run as, I think, a third exercise at some point in the year. So then we've got a continuum of exercises using the same scenario, but rather than try and concertina the whole thing in to be very superficially short, is to actually allow the detailed or more detailed planning and try and capture as much outtakes from doing the scenarios.
Anyone else haven't spoken? Bring it home, Councillor Telfer.
So just in a real life situation, if we use what happened in Gabriel, where our communications were right out, and we end up in room down here with a group of people that were trying to find all these people in different areas, trying to make sure that they were all right. So you're saying this system will be able to solve that problem?
Give us a better head start, and that it's because of that issue. It's because of what the post-impact of Gabrielle, which was really where particularly sitting in this room, putting the priority in to account for everybody in the region. The reality, we did achieve that. It was, police-led in terms of being a region-wide search and rescue way operationally put together. The practical outcome of that, though, really was an exercise in futility, because we did get off the helicopter, we did have the face-to-face meetings with the emergency services personnel who did that, but once that helicopter left again, we're back to the same start state we were, which is really we weren't connected, we were staying connected when that left there. So it's taken up until this point to look for the solution that really can address the problem of how do we get a communications network that's actually got a reasonable degree of resilience. If those things break, if it was a solar node that broke, I mean, putting one of the units onto a drone reconnects the whole network. So it's got redundancy in the way that even we look to deploy and maintain the operational function of the network.
So supplementary. So because at the moment we've got a huge area of this region that there's no cell phone coverage, there's no texting. I live six k's from here, just flying out Hilton. I've got no cell phone. So are you saying this system is going to solve that, so we can contact people in the outlying region?
To a place near you. So with particularly because you're on the with obviously the way that Riverside, then you've down to where you guys are. The ideal there, and this is where we do the detailed planning with you, is that at the extent of your road, the top end, the start, and in the middle, really the ideal is that we should hopefully get the siting right to allow you to connect amongst yourselves. But the key thing really that we want is a regional system. Just get everyone connecting back in, so we actually got connectivity at all levels.
So how do you test that system to see whether it is, if someone's up and out this gully, how do you test that system when the current system is working? So
we have a very smart tool that interrogates the status of the unit, battery life, the signal, and we also use an electronic tool for placement. So it provides a scattergram across this is an antenna here, it takes a point and then does a model that shows us really where it's hitting. And if it was using the vases as an example, the signal would be hitting at the top of those. And we then determine, that allows us to then look at the placement for the next node, because you're looking for signal to signal and areas of coverage there. And that's the key thing. We'll keep developing the solar nodes to be really the key backbone.
achieves that, it'll be finding people, making sure people are all right. That's the biggest thing.
Let me get close so that I can look at Riverside as much as we're doing in Oda and going up the coast there. But we'll certainly do that.
Thank you.
I'll move the paper.
Thank you, Councillor Parata, seconded by Councillor Muir. If there's no more discussion, all in favour?
Aye.
Contrary. Thank you, Ben. We're going to ask Ian just to give us an update, a NEMA update. What is happening where, Ian? Give us the good news.
I'll take the report as read, and also I'd like to endorse Ben's comments. Congratulations to being re-elected back into the group, and I certainly look forward to working with you over the next 3 years. In respect of the bill, it's still on the cards to be introduced before Christmas. Once that's introduced, obviously we'll come back to you with dates and select committee hearings. I would strongly recommend looking at it, make sure that the provisions that are actually in the bill meet your needs, or if they don't, I suggest a submission goes in respect of what you expect to see in them, because that will be holding us to account. Sir Jerry Mataparai's report, as you're aware, he reviewed the North Island severe weather event and made 14 recommendations to government that have all been accepted. We are working through some of them at the moment, i.e. the common operating picture. New Zealand doesn't have one at the moment, but we're looking at obviously trying to establish one, and such that you won't have to buy into it, but you have to be able to connect to it, so we can obviously share our data and look at what's going on during an event. That will certainly be a leading aspect of that. We're also developing a new National Crisis Centre above ground behind Parliament, which will be a first for us. And that's on track to be ready to go 2027. Government has also given us the green light around phase 3 of Sir Jerry Mataparai's report. We can now we can look at investigating and preparing business cases for regional support teams, public readiness, and the development of the Resilience Fund. What that means is we can actually develop and get the evidence to support our business cases, but we've still got to wait for Treasury to give us an invite to put those in. It doesn't come with a guarantee they'll go in, and it doesn't come with a guarantee that we'll actually have money to implement these. But it is obviously a strong intention of government to actually keep going with this project and putting them in. Other than that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Parata.
Thank you so much for your update. I always appreciate when we come to these meetings and get this updates from NEMA. I guess I have a national question. My understanding is that NEMA, you'll forgive me if I get this wrong, but my understanding is that NEMA has been not disestablished but put into a group of other organisations. Is that true or false? And what is the impact of that for us nationally and locally?
We've relocated our host agency, sorry I should have said that. We've moved from being under DPMC, Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, to working under the Department of Internal Affairs. So basically, NEMA still exists, we're still our own standalone agency, but we're under the host agency of Internal Affairs. The other bit I also said, and it's probably quite prominent, is the release by government around the regional councils. We're working with DIA on that at the moment. There's not a lot I can actually tell you because the information hasn't been released and I guess it's not final at the moment. But as soon as I get more information, I'll certainly reply that. I have given to Ben, in the last half hour, a copy of frequently asked questions and answers, and obviously I'm happy to share that with you. There's not much I can tell you on that at this stage anyway.
Can I have a supplementary?
Yep.
Okay, so it being moved, has that being moved from DPMC to DIA is a relatively just organisational structure more than anything else. Does it impact NEMA's powers of influence to move from DPMC to DIA?
Not at all. There's no change in restricted powers, how we operate, how we work with you, our functions at all. If anything, it gives us a great relationship with the local government sector within DIA to obviously, I guess, facilitate some of the actions that sit there, looking for some deeper answers and get a better understanding. The one downside at the moment is the legal side is not quite up to speed in respect to how DPMC was, but give them 6 months and they'll be up to speed as well.
Okay, then thank you so much.
Any more questions of Ian, NEMA type questions? Thank you, Ian. We're going to take a quick little break and we'll just find out where Nomai is at. So let's do a 50. Okay, thank you Nomai for joining us. Are we going to do Nomai first or Yvette? Nomai, we're going to go with you. Before you start, congratulations. You weren't here earlier, we did lovely congratulations with Ben.
Yes, it's not a competition.
It's not a competition, but there's the other one next door to Colin. So congratulations to Team GDC for bringing the silverware, the glassware home last night. The floor is yours, Nomai. You can take the report as read.
Thank you. Morena koutou, and apologies for being late. I literally just stepped off the plane from Wellington. In New Zealand in delays. But yeah, I'd like to welcome the new members and also to those that I've had the privilege to work with prior to today. So just the recovery report there is for your reading, and just for those that are new, and we have had some time with Jeremy, we have 4 major programs of work that sit within recovery, and that is being managed under, it's not a formal recovery office, but we do have a team of staff and consultants and contractors that help to deliver the program of works. That program of works involves woody debris, so a large woody debris program, which is what we were acknowledged for last night and the work that happens there. And then it also involves a package that is co-funded by the Crown under the recovery, North Island weather events recovery investment. And so that package of works involves our rivers, flooding resilience and river intelligence work. It involves what we call FOSL, so acronym for Future of Severely Affected Land, and that is our Category 3 voluntary buyout program, which is coming to an end, and also our Category 2P program, which is called Mitigating Tairāwhiti, allows homeowners who have been assessed as their location and their home is an intolerable risk to life, but a mitigation could reduce that risk. And so they can either lift the homes or do some form of remediation in terms of stabilising the land. The other piece of work that sits in there is also Category 2C, and that's related to flood resilience solutions that might be brought in around the community to decrease that risk for those properties. Our other package of work that sits in there is also the Regional Transport Program, which is our infrastructure program around roads and bridges. And so that's quite a major piece of work. That's co-funded between New Zealand Transport Association, as well as now the Department of Internal Affairs and the National Infrastructure Funding and Finance Agency, which we refer to as NIF. And so that package of works plus earlier investment into community-led plans. So there were 28 community-led plans that were put together quite soon after Cyclone Gabrielle. And all those plans were funded through investment that came from the Crown as well as funds that came through the Mayoral Relief Fund. And so that's the package of works in its entirety. We have completed a lot of the non-complex work that sits in the infrastructure space, and generally into the more complex projects, particularly in the roading and bridges. You will see in the report that you have, there are various categories that sit within those programs, but we are now into a pretty major construction season for the infrastructure projects. We are also working through some detailed designs for the flood mitigations. There's been a lot of work that's been going on, happening for the Waipawa flood scheme, and then there's also some work that will happen in the large woody debris sector, where we're going to be looking at going in behind the forest gates, working with those forestry owners, and some are private, some are Crown, to look at how we can partner together to mitigate the risk amongst the woody debris issue. That in general is a very high level overview. Just want to pause and see if there's any questions at this time.
Councillor Parata.
Thank you very much and congratulations again to you and your team. I did have several questions, if that's okay. I just wanted to know in terms of FOSL if it's Toitu Tairāwhiti participating in the lifting of homes?
Yes.
And that is going well?
Yes, so Toitu Housing Limited, they are also one of the recipients of that grant. So Gisborne District Council received the grant directly from the Crown to lift homes. Toitu Housing Limited also received that grant from the Crown to lift homes. So whilst they're under the same funding package, they are two separate programs. But I understand they had 45 homes to lift, and I understand that has progressed really well.
Okay, awesome. Secondly, I just wanted to know, in terms of recovery, the financial packages that we've received from the Crown and our procurement processes around particularly woody debris, whether or not we're considering ways in which we can stimulate the economy by allowing other contractors to participate in the woody debris process going forward.
So in general, your question around stimulating the economy, yes. I would have to go and come back to you with some specific detail about the woody debris procurement, because that really has only just started to kick off. and so the first lot of packages have been out for tender. So that's a phased approach, but I can get a more detailed update for you around that.
Thank you so much. I would really appreciate that. Some of the, not necessarily criticisms, but some of the feedback from community is that the Gisborne District Council has money and we have kaupapa that needs to be done, projects that need to be done. When and where possible, it's important that we try to think about not only how the big boys are going to play, but whether or not our smaller players can participate and the impact of that for smaller communities and smaller businesses, which I'm preaching to the converted, but I already know. The last question I had is about community-led recovery plans. 28 plans is a massive amount of plans for our community, considering we're such a small region. So it's impressive that there are 28 various community plans that represent a diverse group of peoples and locations. It was heartening to see that things have progressed forward. I was just wondering if the Gisborne District Council is now going back to communities and there are further conversations that are two-way conversations. I'm particularly interested to know whether or not the northern end of the region, Hōtaka, Tararua, Wharekahika, if they've been reached out to and participating in the ongoing conversations for recovery, which I understand is a long lead.
So in terms of the community-led plans, there was initial investment to help to address some of the quick wins that sat in those plans that those communities wanted to work on. And you know, around about $400,000 that was spread across those plans. In terms of other actions that are not as obvious or are not quick wins, a lot of those actions have started to infiltrate into business as usual. So, for example, some of the sport and rec type actions that were identified, there's a collective now that works together with Whiti Order and the team here at Gisborne District Council, plus other sports codes. And so they bring to light some of those actions and then look to formulate ways to address some of those plans. We've also got some of this work has gone into our climate change and environment sustainability planning. And so that team uses those plans to help drive and design the program of work, and they're actually working on that right now. In terms of going directly back to some of those communities, we also have handed those plans over to our engagement team. And so we have Lillian Ward, Lillian Te Hau. She's taken a lot of ownership of many of those plans, and she will, through her role, and that's working with some of those rural communities, look to keep an eye on whether or not there's opportunities to work on some of those actions.
Thanks so much. I'll move it.
Thank you. Councillor Alder.
Thank you, Your Worship. Now, thank you for the report. You can guess the question I'm going to ask, I think. In answer to a question I asked last week, I was given the answer. First, the resource consent application lodgement dates are anticipated mid-December for the Upper TRI catchment. We spent $70 million in removing woody debris to protect our assets, and yet we still have a threat above our 7 water bridges that has yet to be addressed. This hope that a lodgement is going to come through is a little bit loose. I have spoken to a Pamoa forest owner, and they still believe that the consenting conditions are too difficult and too strict for them to move. If we don't get this anticipated lodgement of a resource consent, what is Plan B?
Thank you, Councillor Order. Just to clarify, we've got $80 million in total that we've received for woody debris, and we haven't spent that because that includes the new money that's come through. In terms of the term hope, I'm not too sure who has said that, but I'm not questioning that from you. The team are actually in the works of preparing the ability to lodge consent along with all the legal powers that are required around that. And they're going to be working in partnership with all the required stakeholders to test how we can get a resource consent to do the range of works and range of mitigations that can be done, can be considered in some of those areas that are very, very high risk I acknowledge the length of time that you are concerned about. It's very, very, very complex, and it's probably an environment that we're coming into that's new. It hasn't been tested, and we're not sure, we don't know that it's going to work and it's not going to work, but the team are very confident at the stage in terms of getting the right information together to lodge the consent. It will require a number of areas in the system, in the whole system, to be working together for this to be successful.
Thank you. Supplementary question. You note here also in this answer that council is meeting on a weekly basis to address this issue. But speaking to the Palmoa owner, when they were last approached by council, they said months ago.
Okay, I can't comment on the council order, but I can go and unpack the issue that you have for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Nomo. So you'll flick that out in an email. Yeah, thank you. Any more questions? Otherwise, I'm happy to second Nomo's recovery. Thank you for that. And thank you for rushing across the country to get here in time. Much appreciated. All in favour?
Aye.
On 3. Carried. Okay, we are going to ask our lovely Yvette. Are you online, Yvette? Yes, our lovely Yvette is online. Welcome to our meeting. So Councillors, Yvette will talk to us about our group plan, which is important, big chunk of work. So Yvette, I am going to hand over to you. Floor is yours.
Oh, ngā mihi kia ora. Kia ora to our councillors old and new. I'm Yvette Kinsella, and I've got the privilege of actually working with the TMO team and the GDC to develop and review the existing group plan. So I'm just really wanted to take you through a very short presentation just to update you where it's sitting within that review process. And so, yeah, we'll kick off with our first slide, and I'm just going to say next slide to whoever the lovely person is who is driving the slideshow from you.
Struggling to hear you, Yvette. You might have to sit a little bit closer to your microphone.
Is that a little bit better now?
No, it's worse.
Okay, what about now?
Even worse. You were well heard in the beginning.
Okay, well, I just need to speak louder. Can you hear me now?
We can barely hear you. It feels to me you were better in the beginning.
Yeah.
Jill, we at
Okay.
top volume? Okay.
Right. I will speak loud. Is this okay?
Yes, thank you. Just, yep, all good.
Right, so the CDEM Act, the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act, has been around since 2002, and it's the key piece of legislation that outlines the shape and the delivery of our emergency management system in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and has a whole bunch of clauses about roles and responsibilities and structures down to a regional level, and it really sets out how we do things in our country. It's got some specific purposes to manage hazards in a way that supports social, economic, cultural and environmental well-being, managing safety of people and protecting property. So it has a very specific focus on the 4 R's in its purpose statement. And this diagram on the bottom right, as you look, outlines those 4 R's. Starting with reduction, it has a core purpose to encourage and enable communities, and I'm going to use the words from the Act, to achieve acceptable levels of risk, which involves identifying risks and managing them in a cost-effective and efficient way, and monitoring and reviewing how that works. It also has a focus on the other 3 R's as well, and requires it provides for planning to get ready for an event, to respond to an event, and to recover from an event. So It also requires that councils coordinate their activities of emergency management through regional groups, plans and programs, and it's not so much of an issue for the GDC and the Tairāwhiti region because there is one council as a unitary authority. In other regions, there are many, up to 8 councils that need to coordinate their activities. So the Act requires that that coordination happens and that all of the things that we do align with national civil defence practices as well. An important critical thing because we need to be able to scale up our efforts, particularly during response and recovery. So next slide about group plans. So we're all required as CDM groups to have a group plan, and the purpose of that group plan is to enable the efficient, effective and coordinated delivery of emergency management. So in order to do that, we need to identify the hazards and risks that the CDM group will be managing, how we're going to manage those risks, particular focus on recovery and how we will strategic planning for recovery, our objectives for emergency management, how we will fund our activities, and some critical decision points within the emergency management system around declaring emergency events and notifying what's called a transition period, which is when you move from response into recovery. So next slide is about the review drivers. This wee picture on the left is our current CDM group plan, and we are reviewing it. It's 166 pages long, and it's a little bit of a dust catcher on a shelf. So what the things that are driving the review, the critical thing really is that we're overdue. Our last plan was reviewed in 2016, and so we really need to make, we're required to review every 5 years under the CDM Act. That's to ensure that we're keeping up to date with any changes, social, cultural, environmental and economic changes, technological shifts, trends, and also any new information that we have, particularly about our risks. So we did do a review in 2019, but it was a light touch review, and it was to update the plan in response to some of the recovery matters that had been highlighted anew in the Act. We did not look at the fundamentals of our emergency management system at that time. Since the last review, our landscape for emergency management has changed significantly, both in our region and nationally. And we have learned quite a lot from the events that we have experienced. Operationally, the management practices have evolved, and there's been a lot of innovation, and a lot of that innovation has got national attention and has become examples of best practice. So the group plan is essentially trying to catch up and reflect those learnings, as well as position us for the future. Another part is that as our operations have evolved, they are actually signalling quite a significant change in approach, but there is not really a cohesive picture or an explanation of that approach because it has happened, being driven by operational change. So that our story of Tairāwhiti emergency management really needs clarifying and promotion, so that we all know what what's going on. It needs to be the group plan also, we sort of think, needs to be more relevant to audience. There's a whole different number of layers to emergency management. There's a governance layer, which is yourselves. There is a management layer, which is the KEG and CE at the CE level, and there are operational levels. Each of those layers have different responsibilities for different parts of emergency management, and they need different sets of information. At the moment, that big group plan that's 166 pages long, it tries to be all things to all people. So it is information for the relevant audiences is buried within those 166 pages. So it doesn't really deliver for the different audiences. What we're suggesting is that a group plan and subsequent documents needs to target information to the right audience so that it is used. We need some streamlining and accessibility. There are about a dozen emergency management plans that we have in Tairāwhiti at the moment that sit underneath the group plan. And these range from really high level documents that cover what to do in emergencies across the whole region to really detailed contingency plans for flooding in Uawa and procedural specifications such as evacuation. They're not really integrated and they don't talk to each other very well. And so there's a real risk that we'll go off and do be at odds with each other. So the upshot really is there's a little confusion, and we're just trying to generate through this group plan a clear and navigable system of documents. And obviously, again, that's targeted to the needs of the different emergency management actors and the public. Part of that is that recent events, not just in Tairāwhiti but nationwide, have really created some ambiguity around roles and responsibilities within emergency management, like who's the lead agency in different types of events. Some of these roles are determined in statute, but there's quite a significant scope to have bespoke arrangements that fit with your local context. And we really are seeing that we want the community to understand who does what in the system and what they can expect from different organisations before, during and after an emergency. And I wanted to give an example of that. After Cyclone Gabrielle, I heard quite commonly people saying across the district, Ben Green, the group controller, didn't come and see us in Gabrielle. And from where I said to them, it's not Ben Green's role to come and see each person or each community after an event. He has a really specific role as the group controller, and that is coordinating across the entire district. So we just need to clarify for people and tell that story a lot better about who does what. This is all taking place in the middle of ongoing government reform. Government has been, reforming the system since 2017. Subsequent changes in government and ministers have seen quite big swings in direction of where they are going to go. So there has been a lot of uncertainty. But the timing of the new bill coming out is going to probably represent an opportunity for us to ensure that what works for our region and that is captured in our group plan will be able to be incorporated within the new policy and legislation that's coming from a national level. Next slide. So I just wanted to go through the key proposed shifts. So I will talk about the process. I will say that we started this a while ago, and the last CDM group approved some high-level proposed shifts, which I wanted to talk through with you just to show to you now where they got to. The first one is about the emergency management framework itself, and it's a subtle but really important change to how we think about emergency management. This diagram in the picture illustrates what we're proposing our system looks like. It uses the 4 R's: reduction, readiness, response, and recovery. And it is based on the idea that emergency management happens in phases and it is ongoing and cyclical. So it doesn't stop. When you've stopped responding to an emergency, you haven't stopped. You've moved to a different phase of the emergency management cycle. And we may be focusing on reducing risks and preparing for the next event and our readiness activities. So it recognises that these phases are interconnected and they do overlap with each other. It also critically emphasises that there are 2 core functions, welfare and communications, that cut across all of those emergency management phases, and that they are so critical for Tairāwhiti that they actually, we think they warrant a visible presence within that framework. So we have included them as a hub of our framework. All of this is surrounded by a set of vision, a set of principles, and some objectives. There is other elements in the document that will come through as well, which will talk about things like what is the structures that we have in place as a region, who is going to be delegated to be able to do what are some of the key decisions that will be made and the criteria we'll use to make those decisions, and a range of other things. We will have a layer of policies that will help to guide us around any eventualities that happen. And some of those policies, I'll give you an example of what we're proposing around communications, is that there is a policy that when we do something different or change something within our system, we tell people about it, and we tell the people who need to know in a timely way. So there's all sorts of policy shifts like that we'll be aiming to bring in. So those are the 4 key shifts. Oh, sorry, there's one last one, which is important. It's about agility and continuous improvement. We currently, to review and change a group plan, anything that is more than minor, you must go through a full process that involves public consultation, hearings, ministerial approval, and it is quite extensive. It doesn't enable us to necessarily be very agile with our practices and our processes. And as we learn more things, we experience this for the number of events that we've had, things have changed a lot, and how we do things has changed a lot. So what we want to do is to propose a different structure for our documents, that we have a CDM group plan that is quite strategic in its focus. It's like a PO that we stamp into the ground that is not going to move very quickly. It is the things that are really important to us and that are unlikely to change over the next 5 years. Underneath that, we would see that each of those 4 R's and the welfare and communications sector spaces would have their own individual plans led by the KEG, and those documents would sit outside of the group plan, so that when we have an event and when we learn something from that event, we can incorporate it immediately into our practices and roll it out, so that it is not, it could be captured as part of the framework. Underneath those 2 layers of documents would sit a set of standard operating procedures. So, you can see how we are trying to create like a skeleton for the system to hang off. Another quick note that community empowerment was another one of the big concepts that we think is really important within this emergency management framework. Excuse me. And what we increasingly have seen is that communities really need to be empowered to be self-supporting. and we need the right systems and structures in place to enable that. We haven't quite fully landed on what that looks like right at this stage, but that will come through in a draft, in the draft group plan. It's about getting the balance between empowering communities to be able to take action to support themselves, but ensuring that those who actually remain accountable for the emergency management decisions and actions, that's balanced against community action. And last of all, I think the key thing that is not really within any framework or requirement at the moment, but which we are very interested in pursuing through the group plan, is some form of requirement that there is an implementation plan that is prepared regularly every 3 years in line with long-term plan cycles, that actually talks through what do we need to be able to deliver on a bang-up emergency management system for Tairāwhiti. And that would include be developed essentially as a draft by the KEG and fed up through to the CDM group for approval. Then the next slide is just wanted to go through the process of what a group plan review actually entails. So the left-hand diagram shows you the steps that we have to take. It does not give you a sense of how big each of the steps is, unfortunately, because that very first step, preparing the draft, is by far the largest. But it's to show you that it needs to go through a public notification process once it's a draft is arrived at, and that people need to be able to make submissions, and if they choose to, be heard at a hearing, probably by the CDM group, by you. And then you would make your decisions on what the final draft would look like. And that final draft would have to go to the minister for approval. And then the minister will send comments back, and we will need to consider those comments and how we will amend our plan. And then we can get to a group plan. You can see by the diagram, the text on the right, that we're aiming to do this by July 2026. We have just finished a large piece of work, a risk assessment work, which was a significant undertaking. But it was really the foundational for the group plan. It involved multiple stakeholders across emergency management services, experts from the social, environmental, economic and cultural areas. There were obviously some KEG members attended, and we also had a couple of iwi representatives attend as well. Which leads on to the next point, is that we really need to engage a little more with iwi before we can get that draft done. We want to understand what iwi are wanting to see happen through this group plan. So that is priority right at the moment. And Ben can provide some information about how that part is going. Provided we can get that through that by February, we're looking at a draft group plan in March. And then, yeah, that will take us through the rest of that cycle through to July 2026. It's important, from where I sit, the implementation plan is in place or ready to go by July, if it is to inform long-term plan funding cycles, because our modelling will be starting probably around that time, if not shortly after. So this is all timed to ensure that we get a document that works for us and that is implementable. Kia ora.
Thank you, Yvette. Lots of work happening, lots of cogs that need to come together. Thank you for laying it out clearly to us. I'll open the floor if there are any questions from councillors. There's obviously a clear plan forward with timeframes and iwi consultation, public consultation, ministerial approval. And are you confident that we have enough time to get there?
I will feel more confident when I see what the new bill has included within it.
Fair enough.
We have kept abreast through the process of them developing that bill, of some of the changes that they have been looking at, and we have tried our very hardest to anticipate what those changes might be and to try and build some of that practice into this process and into the content of the group plan.
Right.
That may be one thing that could push the timeline out.
Thank you. Any more questions of clarification of Yvette? Councillor Telfer.
Just one thing, Yvette, you mentioned the current plan's 160 pages. I'm just wondering about, not many people are going to go and pull out a document and go and read 160 pages. I'm just wondering whether there can be some form of a summary that is very bullet pointed of the process, so that anybody, no matter where they are, their ability can actually see that each group will then go away and do their own thing and whatever. But I find quite often you get these papers that are 150, 300 pages. People just get lost in the detail. So I think it would really work if there was a really clear, staggered summary page. It could be a one-pager of this is what happens and who's responsible type thing.
Right.
Councillor Tibble.
Thank you.
Good, Yvette, thank you for that presentation. You spoke about there being a problem with the 160-page report and that it's difficult for the various users to understand where their voice might be represented inside the documentation. Have you considered human design principles so that it does get written up in ways where the user, depending on whether they be rural or urban, understand what this documentation should most convey to them so that they understand how that relates for them in a user-centred space, not from a business-centred focus?
Yeah. Great question. And we have actually got a hierarchy of documents that we are working on. What I didn't talk about, I talked about the group plan and then the different plans for the 4Rs and then the state standard operating procedures. What I didn't mention was that there is a fourth layer, and that is the public layer, and that is the summary documentation that will go to the public so that they completely understand exactly what we're all about in the emergency management system. And that will be the things that are important to them as public. There are a number of audiences. The operational plans that are the 4Rs, they may have jargon in them. So because they are intended to be used by emergency management practitioners as a guiding document for how they do their stuff. But it is within that public-facing material that we need to be summarising all of the things that are in those document layers and presenting the relevant parts to the community.
Can I have a supplementary, please, through you, Madam Chair?
Yes.
In regard to what you've just explained, I think it might be useful and prudent for the thinking to consider, just like we've just gone through an elections campaign and there was specific voice pitched at Māori community in a peculiar way that is specific to the way the Māori community here likes to understand things, that for that public-facing document you consider making sure that that same strategy, comm strategy, is applied to the public documents equally for this purpose. Principally because we're 56% of the population and Māori will want to hear it in the way Māori understand. Kia ora.
Councillor Tibble. Any questions of clarification? Thank you, Yvette. Keep up the good work. It's a big piece of work trying to make everything fit and make sense and make sure there's no duplication, but everything is in there and it makes sense, and our community will respond to it, and the minister would like it, and it is efficient, and it meet the criteria when we are in crisis. So thank you for everything that's going into this. Thank you, Jean, also for your assistance. Thank you, Yvette.
Kia ora.
Mihi, thank you. Anything else we wanted to touch on, or Nadine, anything you wanted to chime in with? If not, I'm going to say this is the end of our civil defence meeting, because Yvette's was part of the first report. There was nothing to move or second. So thank you very much. Go and enjoy the sunshine. Remember to put your sunscreen on because it is really hot out there.